An absolutely massive clash we have on our hands here. Jan Nepomniachtchi, the leader of the FIDE Candidates 2024, is here. He's leading jointly with Gukesh on 6 out of 10. Jan has won both the candidates in 2020, 21 and 22. So he is the man to beat here, and facing him today is none other than Vidit Gujrathi, who is on 5 points out of 10, 1 point behind the leader, and a win against Jan will really propel his chances to reach the top in this candidates. In the first encounter that they played in this tournament, Vidit had lost to Jan Nepomniachtchi with the black pieces in the Berlin endgame, and there you have Vidit coming in. He has to fight with the white pieces now, and the problem is that when you face Jan, you are not facing an opponent who has a huge wide repertoire. You are facing someone who's going to play the opening, for against e4 he will play the Petrov, but he's so well prepared that it's difficult to find loopholes through it. But Vidit must have spent his rest day trying to find something there, and there you see him meditating, taking his time between the black and white, black king and black queen. You can see Vidit there in his meditative pose. Will he manage to come out on top or not remains to be seen here, but he has been a fighter here. He's faced losses, but he's come back. He lost to Pragnananda, he came back against Alireza. He beat Nakamura 2-0, he then lost to Gukesh, and this has been happening to him in this tournament, that he has been facing back and forth stuff, but this one is an important game now. And with it also has this red drink of his, which has, he drinks before the game to get energy. And there you have Jan Nepomniachtchi coming. He smiles and shakes hands, which is always very nice to see. The players can be really brutal on the board, but off the board they are good friends of each other. And off we go. Let's begin. Vidit, as always, takes some time before the game, closes his eyes, and that is a ritual he does. But he's shortened that because he's come under time pressure in this tournament often, and perhaps here it's more important for him to save time here. So a short ritual there, and he plays 1 e4. Very, very interesting choice because he's ready to face Jan's Petrov. And you can see Nepo plays e5. I don't think he's going to shift from it. That is Nepo's strategy. Call it predictable, but he has that thing. Vidit asks Nepo, can I take the clock a little bit on my side? And Nepo said, of course, no problem. Knight comes out to f3, and now, yes, knight f6. I'm betting on it. Yes, he plays knight f6. So the Petrov is on the board, and I'm very interested and excited to see what is Vidit's idea going to be. He takes the pawn on e5. He chops it, and now d6 played by Nepo. The main move is knight f3 by far. Like, there's no other move that can compare to the popularity of knight f3. But with it goes knight c4, and that's already the first step in the direction of trying to bring Nepo out of his prep. Okay, Nepo says I'm prepared. Knight c4 is not such an uncommon move. It's the third most popular move in the position, and I have prepared against it. Okay, what is next move that Vidit's going to play? Will he play, he goes queen e2. He pins the knight, and you can see Nepo is a bit surprised there with its choice, but I think the only move he has now is queen e7. There's also d5, but he prefers queen e7, which is the more logical move. And now let's see what Vidit does. Well, he plays his knight to c3, and again Nepo is like, wow, this is something I didn't expect. So maybe Vidit has done one thing. He's got Nepo out of his jacket, first of all, and he's got him out of his prep, which is already good news. But on the other hand, the line which he has chosen is not particularly dangerous. I mean, it looks pretty sedate. Oh, he takes with the b pawn. He wants to use the b file for his rook. He wants to use this central clump of pawns to play. So essentially what Vidit is saying is that let's have a game, a queenless middle game is what I want. Bishop comes out to g4. Maybe it's the first new move, but the nature of the position is same. Most of the games continued with black taking the queen. You can see both the players are now off the board. Vidit comes back, writes down the move, thinks for a bit, and then chops off the queen. You know how many minutes he thought actually for this move? 21 minutes before taking the queen. I wonder what he was thinking. Maybe he was wondering if he could play f3 there. But now Nepo just takes it back with his bishop, and Vidit plays the move rook b1, a quiet little move attacking the b7 pawn. Nepo plays his pawn to b6. Let's think about the position a bit more now. You want to play a4, a5 as white, because then you can put some pressure on the queen side. Maybe to a4, black could go a5, that is possible. For now, Vidit says, I'm keeping my pawn on a2 and I'm expanding in the center. Later, I'm going to move my knight to e3, push my pawn to c4, d5. That is the idea here. Okay, Nepo comes back and he is now going to decide what he wants to do. There are a few options. He can castle. Well, he decides I'll first go bishop e6 back. The knight is defended, so it's not really that he's attacking something. There's also an idea that you can play g3 and put the bishop on this diagonal. Very much possible. Maybe first move the knight away, knight e3. But then you are losing the a2 pawn. So for now, Vidit has to worry about the a2 pawn, and that's the reason why he goes a4. I'm very interested to see if Nepo will block this pawn with a5 or will he play something else. He doesn't bother about it. He just castles. He castles it out. And now if a5 happens, perhaps it's possible. But he goes knight e3. Vidit plays his knight back to the e3 square, and he wants to maybe go c4 and d5. That's his plan, perhaps. Or you just may want to play g3 and bishop g2 also. So Nepo plays his bishop to g5. An interesting move. Not particularly clear as to what his idea is here. Like, why would he play his bishop to g5? It's a little bit unclear to me. Does he want to give up his bishop for the knight? That would give white the bishop pair. So Vidit plays c4. Maybe not the best idea. Maybe Vidit could have played h4 as well. That's also possible. But c4 does weaken the central pawns a bit. Nepo goes rook e8 and he's looking here. It's a useful move to put the rook on the e file. Right now the c4 pawn is again not hanging because the bishop is controlling it. Vidit attacks the knight, and for Vidit it's simple. If you take here, I'm going to take back, and I think white can claim a small edge because of the bishop pair. But black can also go back, and that's exactly what Nepo does, and asks Vidit, hey, I'm attacking your pawn. Do you want to play d5? I'm going to then come in with a check, or perhaps just go back and my bishop is going to be very strong. Your pawn is weak. Okay. So for Vidit, clearly pushing the pawn is bad, so he defends it with c3. But now you will see that this structure can be struck upon, and exactly what Nepo does. He goes c5 and he tells Vidit, now you can't push at all because you're going to lose a pawn with a check. So clearly the opening has gone Nepo's way. He has 1 hour 19 minutes. Vidit has 53 minutes on the clock, and a great move by Vidit. When put under pressure, he finds the move. The point is, if you take the bishop, I go bishop e4 and go for your rook here. So that is Vidit's idea, and I think this was a very important move that Vidit had to find. Otherwise, he would have been in trouble. Knight c6. Fantastic play by Nepo. Now, he's ready for d5, pawn fork. But the knight will jump to e5 and attack this bishop. Such a sharp opening, yes. Even after playing the Petrov, the queen's getting traded. This just goes to show that when two players are ready for a full-fledged fight, when there is enough incentive, they can create magic in any position. Knight jumps to e5 here. Well, it was possible to take this pawn, but after king d1, white would have been better here. So that's the reason why knight e5 played, and Vidit sacks his bishop, because now if he would have taken this bishop, knight takes d3 would have come with a check. So he first gives up his bishop, takes a pawn, and Nepo says, okay, I'll take back. And now he will take back the bishop on e6. Nepo can take with the rook, but I think taking with the pawn is nicer so that the knight doesn't get the d5 square. He takes fe6. taking stock of the position. Both sides have 6 pawns each. Nepo's structure looks clearly superior, but Vidit has something that Nepo does not have, which is a kingside majority, and that to a mobile majority. And the knight on e3 is well positioned, controlling these squares. The position is around even. Rook a8 played by Jan Nepomniachtchi here. And now Vidit, how does he continue? Where does he put his bishop? He says there's no time right now to move the bishop. I'm playing g4. My idea is to play g5. Maybe later also start pushing the kingside pawns even further. Nepo puts the pawns to a break. He plays g6 here. But can Vidit simply just push the bishop away and clamp the pawns with g5? It looks very possible here. Yes, he plays it. Good move. Pawn to g5. The bishop is attacked. Bishop has two ways to go. Bishop e7, bishop g7. I think you want to keep your bishop on the longer diagonal because here there is more potential that is brewing up. Will Vidit push this knight away now with f4? It's possible. He can push it away, but also he has some questions to answer. He says a5. I'm okay with the knight being here. I want to create an open file for my rook. You know, often we are told connect the rooks. It will help you. But you know what? Sometimes you can connect your rooks in weird ways. This rook will activate from here. This rook will activate from here and they will get connected. It does not always have to be connected on the last rank. And Vidit goes in. Rook to b7. He wants to actually attack here. Now if you're not careful, h5 can come up. Rook takes a7 is hanging. So Nepo says, I don't want to take any pressure here. I'm just trading off the rooks. Your active rook for my inactive rook. Vidit takes it. Knight takes d7 has occurred. Now you are a pawn down for the time being as Vidit Gujrathi. But rook d1 is such a classy move. The point is you are attacking here. Now if you take bishop takes c3, I have rook d6 attacking the knight, rook a6, then putting pressure here. Lot of things happening. So Nepo goes back bishop f8. He goes slightly passive. Vidit goes aggressive. He plays his knight to g4 and he tells Nepo, you can't move your knight. I'm coming in. I'm also going to move my bishop away, then move my rook and come in. Wow. Nepo says, sorry my friend, I am taking the b file. That's mine for now. So it's a clash of ideas. It's a beautiful game that is brewing up here. Vidit now goes bishop f4. Look at this small little move. He knows that this pawn can be defended with e5, but that would weaken the d5 square, and that's the reason why he's come out there forcing Nepo. Oh, first he gives a check. Nepo says, I want to activate my rook. Well, but Vidit can actually put his king on a good square. King f3, excellent square here found by Vidit Gujrathi. His king is now active in the position and Nepo pushes the bishop away with e5. Believe it or not, this is short-term gain for long-term problems because now d6 is weak, d5 is weak, and Vidit does have a lot of compensation here. Nepo goes knight to b6, attacking the pawn on c4. That is his plan. Now what does Vidit do? Well, I think there's a spring in his step. He goes knight f6, but he has only 12 minutes left to make 9 remaining moves. It's not easy. Nepo has 20 minutes left. Nepo goes king h8. He could have also gone king g7 perhaps, but then knight e8 check would have been a problem. So king h8 and now king e4. What a move by Vidit. If you take here, my king comes in. The king is a piece in an endgame. a4 played, and now how does Vidit continue here? Because Nepo is putting his money on the a pawn. Vidit says, I'll use my rook to stop the pawn. I will use my king to enter in. And now Nepo goes rook b3, a mistake because now h5 is winning for white. Takes king f5. No, Vidit does not spot this winning idea. He goes king d3, which is passive, but a lot of it has to do with his time because he had only 8 minutes left at that point in order to make another 7 moves, and so he comes back. a4, a3 played, bishop comes in and says to Nepo, hey, aren't you just simply losing this pawn now? Well, Nepo pushes his other pawn down the board to a5. And now, can Vidit capture the pawn on a3? Yes, I think he can do it. And he does it. Bishop takes a3. The material is now even. Vidit seems to be in a good position also. d5, it's a mistake. And look at this beautiful variation. Take, take, take. Rook takes, c4, takes. You are down a piece. But after king b5, c4, c5, d6, white is winning there. No, but Vidit does not spot it. He doesn't take here. He plays king c2 and now d takes c4 happens. It was such an insane line there. to calculate in 5 minutes was not easy. Knight comes back to e4. Vidit still seems to be fine, but he misses two amazing chances to win. Well, he had to believe in himself. Well, what's next now? He's attacked the c5 pawn here with his knight and bishop. Nepo has gone back with his rook. Rook comes to d1, bishop e7. You can see Nepo making his moves slightly, in a way where he doesn't believe in his position. He feels like his advantage is not there. But still, he's a fighter. You can't win two candidates without fighting. He brings his king in. 40 moves have been completed. Both players have 30 minutes on the clock. Vidit brings back his knight. So now Vidit is once again a pawn down, but he's attacking c4. He's keeping an eye on c5. He's keeping an eye on e5. And where does Nepo go next? He goes bishop d6 and he tells Vidit that, hey buddy, look, you are attacking my bishop. I understand it. I'm going to go back. You're going to go back. I'm going to go front. You're going to go front. We're going to go back. And then we need to draw this game because it's what the position demands. But Vidit here goes knight g3 and he tells Nepo, well, my friend, I want to play for a win. Immense attitude, excellent attitude shown here by Vidit, fighting for the full point. We always love fighting chess, and Vidit has shown that in ample measure in this tournament. Rook comes to b3, attacking the bishop on a3 and the pawn on c3. Now the bishop has to move, so he brings his bishop back to c1. But you can feel it that actually black is the one who's kind of getting some things moving, because now if you take the pawn on e5, rook takes c3 is hanging, so Vidit has to take care of that. Nepo is getting his activity. Vidit comes back with his knight. He defends the pawn on c3. Maybe bishop d2 he wants to play and then bring the rook to a1. That's his plan. King f7 played. Maybe the black king will come to e6, then to f5. Vidit goes bishop d2, defending the pawn, and he still has his trump cards here. There is no doubt about it. But Nepo is pushing his pawn forward. He goes a4. He pushes his pawn to a4. Vidit says, I'm attacking your pawn with rook a1. If you push the pawn even further, I go bishop c1. And by the way, there's a very interesting knight b4 check. You just have to sidestep. You don't take and give black these unbelievably strong pawns. But right now, rook a1. He went back knight b6. Vidit goes bishop e3 now. He's attacking the c5 pawn. Nepo comes back. He's defending everything. The knight defends these two pawns. The rook defends c5. Bishop defends c5. And now Nepo plays, Vidit plays his knight back to d2. Nepo moves his rook to a5. And he wants to push this pawn down the board. King b2. A risky decision by Vidit to put the rook here. And then eventually activate his, put the king there and eventually activate his rook. Meanwhile, Nepo is getting his activity with his king here. But you can always see that after king f5, you have the move f3 to stop the king. So king goes to a3. It's so amazing that with just 3 pieces, the game is getting so sharp. Rook b5 is to just prevent the white rook from activating here. And now Vidit goes rook c1. Because, if you play this check, knight b3, white should be completely fine here. So Nepo goes king f5. He activates his king. He gets up. He's putting pressure on Vidit. 10 minutes on the clock for Nepo. 6 minutes for Vidit. And now Vidit, what is he planning to do? I would say he might go f3. Yes, that's a smart little move because the pawn controls the light squares. The bishop controls the dark squares. The king doesn't have any entry for the time being. And now comes the move knight to d5. Well, the knight is actually attacking the bishop now. So bishop, if it moves away, the king can come in. So king takes a4 played by Vidit. Whoa, what a brave move, because if you take here, I take your rook. Okay, fine. Nepo goes back and tells Vidit that, hey, look, I'm going to give you a check now. That's going to be a monstrous check somewhere. The bishop is hanging. What are you planning? Well, Vidit says, I take another pawn. And for the time being, Vidit is a pawn up now. So e4 played here by Nepo. F takes e4. He's activating his king. You can see that king takes on e4 has happened. White is a pawn up for now. The position is still equal. Bishop f2 played here by Vidit Gujrathi. This is getting very intense. The king comes in even further. Knight is attacked. If you move your knight away, you are in trouble. Knight takes c3, check is happening. So Vidit finds this epic move. Bishop g3, rook attacked. If you give a check, I come back, defend this, and I'm clearly winning here. So Nepo took on c3 with his knight. Vidit needs to take this. Rook takes c3, king takes c3, bishop b8. That should be a draw in the bishop endgame. Nobody comes back. Nepo moves his rook in. Knight e5 check, important. Vidit needs to play this with 40 seconds left. There's 30-second increment now, but he gives a check on b2. The final mistake or what? Because this has given black a huge advantage. King comes into d2, attacking the rook. The rook needs to move somewhere. There are massive problems now for Vidit Gujrathi. The main one being that after c4, the bishop will open up. The knight is taking away squares, so is the rook. Vidit goes to g1. Oh, he goes to f1. He's planning to somehow use this to check, or rook f7, and c4 comes in. Here, beautiful move by Nepo, opening up the bishop's path. What does Vidit do next? It's a tough move here for Vidit Gujrathi. He's thinking hard. He plays rook to f2 check, and now you can't go king c1. Bishop f4 would lead to a mate. So he goes knight e2, which is the best move in the position. Very dangerous discovered check waiting. Vidit goes bishop e5. What a move that is. Because if you play rook here, let's say rook check, king a4 and take this, I have knight c4 check and I win your rook here. Unbelievable stuff. So for now, Nepo goes pawn to c3. He pushes his pawn. He says, I keep that discovered check in hand and I play it here. Rook f7. He moves his rook back with a counter check to the king. Vidit has to move his king. King goes to a4. And if you play cb2, you can take this knight. But Nepo pushes c2. Knight comes out to c4. Nepo quickly moves his king. The pawn is queening. There is no way to stop that pawn from queening. And with it, the realization has dawned on him that his position is utterly lost. There's just no way he can stop the pawn. He goes knight b2 check. If Nepo takes on b2, then bishop b2, there is some hope. But Nepo is very calm here and plays king e4. And there you see it. After fighting immensely hard, after fighting like a lion, Vidit Gujrathi now has lost the game. The emotions are there on the screen for us to see. He cannot believe that he did not manage to handle that position, because I think at some point Vidit took so much of risk that there was nothing left there. And there the shake of hands, Vidit is just shaking his head. Nepo is exhausted. Immediately Vidit shows that he needed to go h5 there, where he could have won the game. This is the level at which they play. They are so strong and they are able to spot all these little things. And Nepo says, I don't know, he's, after winning such a game, generally you have a feeling of happiness or excitement. But for Nepo, it is about exhaustion. It is a feeling that, man, this game was just too tough and there were too many errors. As a chess player, he just feels completely exhausted and tired. He gets up, he has to sign the score sheet. Vidit, I don't even know, has signed the score sheet or not, but the result is no longer in doubt. Look at Nepo there. He is now in the sole lead of the tournament with 7 points out of 11. Half point behind him is Gukesh and Nakamura. So that's how close the tournament is. But just imagine this guy, if he wins the candidates for third time. Think about his trajectory. Wins 2021 candidates. Then goes and plays Magnus Carlsen, gets brutally crushed. Then plays 2022 candidates, wins it. Plays against Ding Liren, is leading right from the start, is in control of the match, loses it. Comes back here and is fighting like a lion here. If there is resilience, if there is a name for resilience, it is Jan Nepomniachtchi. Does not give up there, and well, whether or not he'll be able to make it, we'll see in the remaining 3 rounds. But he's already a winner on the chessboard. Vidit Gujrathi, also a fantastic fight by him. He could have drawn at multiple points in the game, but he just wanted to keep going. And when you risk big, you also lose big. And with this, with its chances of winning the candidates come to an end, we have still Pragnananda on 5.5 points, also with minimal chances, but Gukesh on 6.5 perhaps can do it.